out Peanut's aggression right from the get-go.
It's also targeting out a late round red side jungler, potential last pick jungler, the Lee Sin, for example. The Rush was known for picking on red side. Also suggests that it might be looking for a Trundle first pick, as Nidalee is one of those theory-crafted champions who in other regions has done very well against Trundle. Spirit did play jungle Trundle, but Rush was able to take him down in game one. And with the Olaf banned away, see what it means, because of course Trundle's seen largely as that pseudo counter to the Olaf. So the Swain flex pick banned against Kingzone, two junglers. So far, it's going to be the support Rakan against Tucson, and also that mid laner, the Kuro's famous Karma pick where he rushed the Banner of Command. That was against Talia. Kingzone see the bans, they see the Nidalee, and they say, no Trundle for you.
No Trundle, 3 jungle picks off the board. Could certainly raise the jungle pick priority here for Afreeca. Stuff like Skarner, stuff like Sejuani go up in power. Do they want to go ahead and first pick that, or move into the mid lane pool that is so available right now? Looks like they're going to lean towards Skarner, hovering the Gragas, maybe a little, last second change, right into the Tahm Kench.
And this is not something that has happened in the LCK at all. At EULC, I see a lot of contest on the Tahm Kench, but Kingzone play a Kingzone style, which is they go bot lane, they pick something that has a 2-item power spike, in Ezreal, for example, and then disengage support for Gorilla. He almost never plays range supports. They could answer this with a Thresh, though. Thresh Skarner, the Griffin special, as we call it in Korea, is a possibility. But Braum and Tahm Kench has dominated Gorilla's champion pool, and Kingzone say, whatever, no utility. We're having Prey have his debut performance on the Kai'Sa.
Unbelievable. We mentioned 3 weeks of preparation for this. We're going to see Prey's Kai'Sa. Now, Kai'Sa can be flexed, very unlikely, but just want to throw it out there. Probably is going to be Prey on that. Varus going to be looked at for Kramer, something that was, criticized for Afreeca in the past for first picking it in so much priority, and they go for it again.
Situationally, it is a very strong pick. It has lane priority. They know they're not against a jungle Olaf that compositionally answers it. It will have the range advantage and the laning phase advantage in the bot lane. So I don't mind the Varus here. Remember, it's not going to be a massive front line either. We know that Skarner is going to be there. Speaking of massive front line, Afreeca will be flexing the Sion. We've seen very little Sion flex pick. We've seen a lot more of it top lane recently, but Azir is left open for BDD. Does not often pick up this champion. That means that Kuro looked past it to flex the Sion. I wonder if he has something special prepared. They flash the Azir, ignore it. They will take a first round support. It's going to be the Alistar, so definitely more aggressive compared to the 11 games of Tahm Kench and 11 games of Braum. Yeah. And surprisingly, between these two teams, Braum actually falls through picks and bans.
Yeah, it's really funny to watch Gorilla on the Alistar and Tucson on the Tahm Kench. You would 100% of the time you look at this draft and you're like, it's the opposite way. But it's just the roles are reversed tonight. So much mind gaming, all the hovering, all the cool stuff. We're going to get into phase 2 of the banning. Some more jungle picks being taken away. Zach, another comfortable one. There's the Sejuani for Peanut, and GP also taken away.
Let's explain this draft a little bit. Because Spirit is in the lineup, this guy is a jungle mad scientist. Jungle Lulu last year, jungle Poppy this year. You have no champion pool issues with Spirit. He can play everything in the jungle and often does in solo queue. Don't always want to queue into him, Valdez. The thing about that is they can ban junglers on blue side and take more jungle bans and know that Spirit will have something. His Lee Sin, for example, may not be Peanut's level, but he is a legacy Lee Sin player as well. So because Mowgli's on the lineup on blue side, they're happy to go for this style. Spirit will show us something, and they are able to attack some of the champion pools on the side of Kingzone.
Yep, his stronger picks, the Sejuani in particular, but so much left available. Even Jarvan, Camille, even the Kha'Zix could be looked at. But first of all, that very high tier top laner, the Gnar, going to be picked up for Khan, his second most played in the LCK for 2018. Looking to get him on a strong pick to start off game 1.
Afreeca can show so many different things. They hovered Gragas with the early pick. Very good disengage to something like the Skarner or the Alistar. This would be a jungle pick for the side of Afreeca. They will lock it in, so it's very, very standard. No mad scientist in game 1 just yet. Waiting for the flex pick here. Seems like it will be Sion top lane, as we were mentioning. People moved away after the Roar the Slayer nerf from that mid lane Sion. Mid lane matchup, it's a blind pick. Azir would be the safest choice if they were not going to be taking the Sion in the mid lane. Kingzone will be expecting this. It is an old favorite from Kuro. It's locked in. What is BDD going to show us? He has been spamming Conqueror Yasuo in solo queue. I don't know if this is the matchup he's preparing for, but it's worth noting because, Valdez, I guarantee we see some of that Yasuo today.
Guaranteed, no doubt. If we're looking at high-tier picks, you think about Ryze, you think about Galio, but hovering the Zoe here into the Azir, is he gonna lock it in?
This is a matchup we see in other regions, bringing back the Zoe. We've seen no Zoe in the LCK recently. I messaged Gorilla and said, you've been seeing any Zoe? Didn't answer my question, Valdez, and it seems like he's had something prepared. BDD brings back the Zoe. Not going to have the same wave priority, but neither will the Azir. Both of them have been targeted in terms of pushing. Man, oh man, the pick comp here from Kingzone is so powerful. If you are isolated and then you take a ride on that Skarner ultimate and Kai'Sa feels strong enough to jump in with the killer instinct, you will die fast, Valdez. The Kingzone DragonX mid-game, very, very powerful here. Whereas Afreeca Freecs, they also have power in the mid-game as well. Hopefully power plus power means fire and fire, and we get plenty of fighting in our game one.
Yeah, the big thing here for me is that a lot of carry potential for BDD and Prey. They can really pop off. The other guys certainly going to be supporting them in a big way. But then we talk about the heroes so far for Afreeca. You talk about Tucson, you talk about Kuro. Normally it's the initiation for Tucson, but this time he has to take a back seat. The pick comp for Kingzone is going to have to be countered by Tucson. He's not a stranger to Tahm Kench. He's played 7 games of it so far in the spring split. It's going to be him and Kuro in the late game with the help of Kramer to try to carry this team.
No Afreeca fan was asking for Tucson to take a backseat. No one said that was their path to victory. There is ultra comfort on the rest of the roster, but Tucson taking a backseat is certainly a risk with how Afreeca have found their leads. Deft remembers that Alistair headbutt pulverize. Whereas on the side of Kingzone, some new stuff. The Kai'Sa jumps up in priority. They have lane priority in top lane, as now will eventually be able to push in the Scion. Pretty balanced roster. No big winner in the drafting phase, but a hype first game and some new stuff from Kingzone expected. It has been 3 weeks since they played on stage.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You also get to look at Peanut, not on an aggressive carry-style jungler. He's going to be farming a bit.
You say that after the early game.
After the early game, once he hits level 6, this guy is going to be visiting every single lane. But guys, it is time. I hope you're ready because I certainly am. Let's get into game number 1, Kingzone DragonX up against the Afreeca Freecs. So many fans coming down. As I've mentioned multiple times tonight, we are nearly entirely packed out here. I'd say 90-95% of the seats filled up. It is raining, pouring cats and dogs outside. Everybody came down here to Busan to watch these two teams go head-to-head. It's going to be a sick one, guys.
Yeah, we may not be on the beach this time. We are inside, and thankfully with the weather report, that one worked out. Good job, Spo TV. Spo TV final. First final for the Afreeca Freecs as an organization in League of Legends. Some very tenured players. Spirit, of course, no stranger to these LCK finals. Kuro is the one I think a lot of people will look to. We do have this really fun battle as notice that neither of the bot lanes rushing to lane. Both lanes giving a leash. We've seen so many people fighting for lane priority in recent metas. This time we have the Varus Tahm Kench, a very safe lane on the side of Afreeca, and Kingzone. They're showing us something different. I think the all-in here from the Kai'Sa Alistair could be something severe, but during the laning phase, the range advantage for Varus should make it pretty comfortable stuff for Afreeca Freecs.
Certainly will. Starting off a little bit slow, and we talked a little bit about how Tucson is definitely the guy who needs to be the initiator here. We've seen many different teams go up against Kingzone and say, oh, we got to take a step back. These guys are really good. We need to play a little bit more passively, safely. Afreeca doesn't really seem to be the team to do that when you have Afreeca, or rather Tucson, on an initiator champion. But this time around, I hope that they don't also take a backseat like other teams, especially KT, the one series they played against Kingzone. Pick ban was great, but once they got into the game, they just looked like they were asleep. Afreeca need to come in fighting. They need to be proactive. That's part of the reason they were able to fight up against KT.
A lot of scaling teamfight options for Afreeca Freecs as the game goes on. A super robust frontline compared to Kingzone, have that very situational frontline where the Alistar ultimate's on, when the Mega Gnar is available, and Skarner in general not really a true frontliner, just going to be an initiator. So as the game goes on, you do worry about Zoe and Kai's ability to get that first pick. They would have to take a lot longer to get the kills, and then frontline to frontline, Azir Varus, you would imagine, will be able to, over an extended fight, be able to get an advantage. However, there are a lot of conditionals there, making that happen, and with how much power Kingzone will have in any sort of skirmish, I think 2v2, 3v3, when the Skarner rolls in, there's a lot of headaches for Afreeca to respect.
Yeah. Peanut off to a very early start, clearing out almost everything in his jungle, except the Krugs. He was thinking about a gank down into the bottom side, but then actually decided against it. We've seen many times the junglers go down to the bottom lane and try to get that bottom lane rolling. Certainly going to be important for both of these teams to look towards the bottom lane.
It's a bit of a different look for BDD. If you think of BDD's usual role in the team, it is usually about initiation and control. You think of specifically Galio as probably his defining pick as a champion. The Zed and Orianna days a bit behind him. In this particular game, while there will definitely be pick power from BDD, it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit different to what he's used to. I think back to when BDD was largely on his normal champions, then first game against Samsung in the World's quarterfinals, brought out the Syndra, tried to play for lane and looked a bit frazzled, made some big mistakes in his last best of 5. Back in the best of 5 stage, looking for BDD to be his normal, comfortable self from the regular season.
Mega Gnar comes in, the Predator is on. First gank coming into Keen. Can he get away from this one? An early flash means the answer will be yes. Some stuff used by Kingzone to get in, mostly just the Predator, but they get the early flash from Keen.
A lot of respect being shown by Sion in that particular gank. He was full health, full mana, so decided to use the flash there, so wasn't 100% sure of the damage calculations. Of course, it is Keen's first big best of 5, his first final, was relegated without even playing a best of 5 on Ever 8 Winners last year. Played in that semifinal and did very, very well against Smeb in kind of a like-for-like matchup. Now he finds himself another top lane carry, and being able to contain Khan, who may not be on the gangplank this time, or the Riven, is will hold the point. Bot lane, a bit of engage.
Miss on the Devour here from Tucson means that Kramer has to get out of there. 3 summoners blown by the bottom lane of Afreeca. Tucson actually devouring a creep instead of helping out his AD carry.
Seems like some top lane jitters and then some bot lane jitters, Valdez. Even though these players are long tenured, it is a different thing to be here in Busan. And the trash talk talking about, well, we're playing the same game, it's just in a stadium. You come here and join us, sit in the middle after that hype intro and just play your normal game. Try to ignore all the festivities. Best of luck with that. So a little bit of tenderness, but doesn't lead to a kill. It just does give unforced errors over to the side of Kingzone.
Yeah, and unforced errors is not what you want. When you're going up against one of the best teams in the world, you need to make sure you're cutting as many corners as possible. You know, staying in lane as long as possible without going back, trying not to miss even just one creep. Or if that means trying to run away without losing your flash to a gank, stuff like that. But if you're going to continuously make errors, certainly Kingzone is going to come back to bite you and gank you where you're weakest.
Right now, Vision pretty even. You do notice there is mid lane priority for Kuro with the double control ward, stopping Zoe from going for any roams, potentially trying to launch a Paddle Star or a Sleepy Trouble Bubble into the enemy red side. Gorilla gets a very greedy freeze off from this and is able to get the lane priority onto the side of Prey and Kingzone. So mid lane priority for now. Peanut doesn't really care. If no ganks happen pre-6, he doesn't matter if there's no mid lane priority. As long as that changes post-6, he'll have plenty of options. So when you have the Skarner, things in the first 3 to 5 levels aren't quite as relevant. But for now, at least, no BDD and Peanut gallivanting, invading. Right now, things pretty even on both sides.
Kramer and Tucson not having the best start in the bottom lane, but it looks like they're going to go towards the Krugs to just catch up a little bit.
So the freeze was pretty heavy there. They gave over a freeze. So if you follow that logic, you have to also give over lane control. They don't know where Alistar is. So for now, just getting the extra farm and then re-evaluating. And if Gorilla was out of lane even further, then you know something suspicious is up.
Certainly does mean that Gorilla and Prey are both going to hit level 6 first. denying a bunch of XP as well as the gold. So Kramer and Tucson have to be even that much more careful when it comes to that engage. We always talked about Tucson's Alistair, but certainly Gorilla can show up. Doesn't look like he's very nervous tonight, Papa.
But this is a win for Kingzone. They were able to pull off a freeze and go even in CS against a Varus lane. And that already, given our expectations, is more than Kingzone deserved, just on the pure 2v2 matchup and the power of Kai'Sa against the Varus. So because of that mistake, walking up as Kramer and losing both summoners, it is extra gold towards Frey, who seems to be going for the Rage Blade first, although there's so many disagreements on when to build the Rage Blade, and just in general, the Kai'Sa builds outside of min-maxing your evolves, that we'll wait and see when the finalized items come in.
So far, looking at the mid lane, BDD has been having his way just a little bit, denying some creeps and landing those sleepy trouble bubbles onto Kuro. Looking okay, he's not too far behind. I was wondering where Peanut was going to go. He got the flash up in the top lane as well as Kramer's flash. He certainly has his options to go for his first Impale gank. So far, we haven't seen much. He's just back to farming on his blue side.
I want to remind the fans, it's patch 8.6. It's a bit surprising that it's going to be the Runic Echo actually built by the Gragas in this game before the AP buffs come through on 8.7. 8.7, the live patch that we're all playing on right now. So relevant that we're just a little bit less scaling. Still going to go for the one-item power spike. It was always a big choice. Gragas was often Runic Echo into tank. I just want to point out here, it's a change from the norm from what we've seen on 8.6. We've seen that resurgence of Cinderhulk Gragas in the last few best of fives.
Spirit having a little bit of trouble denying that control ward from going down. Peanuts up a level here, getting very aggressive in the jungle. But here we go, the roam from Tucson in the bottom lane. The exhaust coming down. Peanut blowing his flash, but he's going to get locked up here with the Chain of Corruptions. There it goes. First blood over to Spirit. Peanut with a bit of a mistake. Too aggressive in the enemy jungle.
Yeah, bot lane didn't have eyes on Peanut there. They had backed away. The bot lane was able to walk over and use the Abyssal Voyage, so Tahm Kench came out of a control ward. There was no early call, and Skarner was done for. Peanut accepted his fate. Wasn't going to try to run away in the easy way. Didn't want to give the kill away over to the Azir. Ends up going over to the Gragas. It was messy in the cleanup, but at the end of the day, it is a kill to the Afreeca Freecs against the run of plays. Top
we got
lane.
a fight. Khan in a lot of trouble, gets solo killed by Keen. What is going on? Keen showing up tonight.
I think he was in the shop. That's the only thing that makes sense. He was so low in the laning phase. We'll have to get a replay to confirm it. But if we're going to point out Afreeca's mistakes, Kingzone DragonX, 2 critical errors, and suddenly it's a line ball game. 500 gold lead to Afreeca.
We talked about how Kingzone are the favorites coming into this one, but a couple critical mistakes, and also Afreeca. Game number 1 is so important for them to win. If they can get off to a good start, then who knows? Maybe even Afreeca can come in and win tonight. Then it's really anybody's series.
It's a bit longer for Khan to get lane control now as well. Already Frozen Heart onto the Scion. Black Cleaver and then some is probably what's needed to actually have the sort of presence and pushing in the lane. That was a nice paddle star from BDD. Yep. Wave clear might not be as big, but you hit that full range paddle star, it's still chunking you out.
Zoe gets nerfed, but still does the incredible damage. Low on mana, but Kuro still is going to go back. Let's take a look at the replay.
So it wasn't actually being in shop. We finally get the confirmation here. Khan is just trying to play halfway down the lane. Gets hit by everything. Doesn't even get hit by everything. I'm trying to predict what happened because of the health bars, but it's an extended trade. It looks like it's all going to be even between the two, but actually just gets hit, doesn't flash, and his damage calculation is on. So wow, Khan just completely outplayed in the 1v1 by Keen.
A straight up solo kill, and the biggest thing for me is that Keen is coming in here. We saw other people looking a little bit nervous, Keen with the early flash, but then the second he notices it, it's just like he's playing at home. He's like, oh, I can get the kill, goes for it, does not have championship jitters, and immediately gets the solo kill on one of the guys we were calling one of the best top laners in the world.
And when it's Kingzone, you make assumptions. It had to be this niche case. Sometimes it's just the player made a mistake. Khan made a pure mistake in the 1v1, 3 weeks away from his last game. That, of course, the reward, and sometimes also the penalty of finishing the regular season first place. Makes a mistake, won't be able to dwell on it for too long though. The game still has a long way to go. But Kingzone are largely favored in the mid game. We're not cresting it just yet, but it's coming. Skarner hasn't been able to find an Impale. Top lane made a mistake, and Afreeca might actually have the inside track to their first Drake of the game.
So we got a really nice ward in the Dragon Pit, but notice that Keen is already making his way down. Could try to come in, does have the teleport advantage, and I think because of that, Kingzone just not even going to challenge here. The first Infernal Drake going over to Afreeca to start off this early game.
Priority bot lane versus priority mid lane was the expectation. And it ends up doesn't mean much as they were able to roam down with the Scion. There was no teleport on Khan. And the mid lane priority doesn't translate into any sort of contest. Lovely to roll high and pick up an Infernal when your Gragas is going for a bit of ability power as well. So things are certainly turning up Afreeca in our first 15 minutes.
Certainly they are. You talk about RNG on the Drakes, the next one is going to be Ocean. So obviously the weakest Drake in 8.6. Talking about ganks here, Peanut does have a 1-for-1 somehow, even though he is 0-1. Not exactly sure how that works out. Maybe the stats are flip-flopped there, as Spirit was the one to get the kill onto Peanut in the jungle.
Item build starting to come in. Rageblade on both sides. Rageblade purely for the W passive and the power when Varus has the ability to stack up those attacks very high and get the E in, rather than necessarily the same one-item power spike as before. Unique interaction with the Kai'Sa is how quickly you can proc that passive and get the missing health damage onto a front line. Rageblade, just a single item for Kai'Sa, makes her a tank shredder in many ways because she stacks it up. She really powers through any sort of frontliner, and there's plenty of frontliners on the side of Afreeca Freecs.
Certainly there are. We've looked at other lanes. We haven't looked too much at the mid lane. It's just been BDD with a very nice lead so far. 20 CS is nothing to, bat an eyelash at. You really have to say, okay, he has won that early game, and especially a mid lane meta where there's not too much action. The Zoe pick that was countering the Azir, getting some success to start off for BDD.
Can be so powerful when the grouping phase starts. No solo kills in this game. Seeing Prey, look for a bit of aggression, but we know that Skarner is in base, so won't be trying anything. There will be a point in the mid game where they can't burst down the front line though, Valdez, where a Trouble Bubble and some autos from Prey won't kill the front line, and then Varus will have no threat on him at all. There is very little backline threat. The closest to backline threat is a headbutt pulverized flash from Gorilla. So getting to the backline means that around 2 to 3 items, Afreeca's tankiness will overwhelm the mid-game damage from Kingzone, and that will present a lot of problems for Kingzone trying to fight for objectives when they usually start becoming heavy contest around 25 minutes.
Yeah. Certainly that late game is going to be looking quite fantastic for Afreeca. The Azir will eventually come online and do some sick, insane damage, as well as the Varus we all know and love. And as we mentioned, Tucson not on the engaged champion, not on the initiating one tonight, but the one thing about his Tom Kent's that I've noticed compared to other ones is that his map presence, his map knowledge, and just awareness is so good. His Abyssal Voyages are some of the best we've seen. It allowed them to get an early kill onto Peanut. I'll be looking for some more good ones later on in this game.
Still a playmaker, even if Tom Kent is usually defined by his defensive Devourer ability. As I want to point out something else, after going for the Runic Echo, it is going to be the Relic Shield line. It's actually going to be the Targon's Brace that's complete. We'll see if I can actually fully explain that to you guys. We saw it in the semi-final as well, as Afreeca starts to walk up. We'll back away. Reason for this is you want to get warding from the jungle, but also be able to use a sweeping lens. You don't want to have just a single sweeping lens on your team. The Oracle lens so important. This is the only way you can get wards. That's why we see it takes a lot longer for the wards to be available. Eventually 500 gold just from grouping will come in from killing the minions, with no bandit, of course, for the ganks. And then you have wards and also the sweep from the jungle that's not available with another build path.
Yeah. It's going to be doing some decent damage with the Runic Echoes, but after that, it's really just about the utility. The engage, he's got that ultimate. Speaking of engage, going in onto Tucson here, got a 3-on-3, getting stunned up. Is that catfish, but the damage going back on a Gorilla. But look at that Prey! The huge barrel is going to get him into position to go down, dodging that ability from Zoe as well. BDD cannot clean up on the back foot, and now 3-0 are Afreeca.
Loved how confident Spirit was. He waited for his moment, chose the moment, got Prey for free. No flash from Prey, just like no flash from Khan. Abyssal Voyage mid lane. This could be first break in the mid lane for Afreeca Freecs.
Looking really good so far. Can they keep it up? trying to take down that mid turret, get the first brick. It's not going to be successful just yet, as Peanut and BDD will respond. But a nice little move to get just a little bit extra. That min-maxing I was talking about. Afreeca looking a little bit nervous to start, but now they're in the zone.
Both teams have definitely had their jitters in the first 17 minutes, but they've been defined by the heavy critical mistakes from Kingzone, actually being capitalized on by some cool, calm, and collected play from the side of the Afreeca Freecs. Kingzone look out of sorts. Have they spent it before they earned it? They have that title of best team in the world. What does it mean, Valdez, if they lose in the grand final and don't go to MSI?
Certainly does mean a lot. Keen coming back, gonna deny that back here from Khan. Actually getting a huge roar from the crowd as people beginning to lean towards Afreeca here in the stadium. I can feel it already. We have, after that big move from Afreeca, of course, they had to back. And look at this, gonna have the impale on Takuro, but he dodges the paddle star from BDD, gets out of dodge, and now the impale is down.
Most important paddle stars have not been registering. A couple in the early laning phase, drawing some ironic cheers from the crowd, and that one also. Remember that Kingzone is showing a lot of new stuff in this game one. The Zoe, that's a new pick. First time we're seeing Zoe in Korea after the heavy changes, even though it was a pick in China and Europe especially. Also their first time on Kai'Sa. They haven't looked particularly good on either, Valdez. They'll say to themselves, okay, even if we lose, we can go back to what works for us in the past, but that will be 0-1, and that will mean the best of 5 is truly on.
Spirit coming in here aggressively after Gorilla losing his ultimate, trading with the Varus, actually. And look at how aggressive Afreeca is being. They're in the mid lane now. They want to get this first brick, and then they are going to be able to doing it, splitting it between the two carries there, Kuro and Kramer. Meanwhile, you got Keen invading on Peanut. Afreeca running away with this one.
Yeah, the bot lane priorities there for Afreeca. They're able to roam first with the Abyssal Voyage every time. And Kingzone don't have the map control to make that predictable. The first turret blood goes to Afreeca in the mid lane. They've been able to pick up the Drakes as well. A lot of what Kingzone is known for is playing around timings, is how explosive they are in the early to mid game. Early to mid game advantage goes to Afreeca.
Certainly it does. There were some questions as for Spirit coming in, even some people saying, I hope they play Mowgli because he's been looking better than Spirit, but already having a really nice game, 2-0, finding Peanut in the jungle to get that first kill, cleaning up in the bottom lane, the perfect counter gank. He's been there both times. The positioning on the map has been exquisite from Spirit so far. I feel like we just got to give him a shout out for that. And
seeing the difference between good and great Gragas jungle play is very often in the cask usage. The cask is something that really defines his kid, and it has been really on point. Very, very willing to wait and take that extra second to not just feel pressured to use it early. I always criticize the lazy cask where you just throw it out and hope for the best.
Yeah.
On point, confident, very, very well done by Spirit so far, justifying the Gragas jungle pick.
Certainly they are. They flashed it in the beginning, saying, hey, we might play this. We thought it was mind games, but they bring it in here. Afreeca looking for their second Drake. I mentioned that the RNG wasn't so great for Kingzone, but just means another Drake stack here for Afreeca. What's going to be next? Will it be the Mountain? Certainly going to be nice, especially when you got Varus Azir. That will be some very fast Baron clearing later on in the game if they can get that Mountain Drake.
Defining characteristic of this series is going to be talking about mid lane priorities, something that's used a buzzword in casting that not always explained. Really about the ability for mid and jungle, but let's just talk about a mid laner.
Got an Azir in the back line trying to do that damage, but they went a little bit deep here. Now going to get the lockdown. Prey is beginning to pop off. Khan now trying to come in here. BDD getting the sleep onto Spirit, but he gets away. Prey now in the front line doing that damage. Nice cast to trade it back. The Paddle Star is going to be blocked here by Keen, and Afreeca will successfully back off.
But you see the difficulty of Kingzone, even though they had the first rotation, to actually kill one of the front line. It was very clear that Afreeca had gone too deep. And speaking of going deep,
flashing in, trying to get that damage onto Kramer, and is successful. That means that Kingzone, nice little play there from BDD. They are going to be able to lock down that bottom turret.
With those big ultimates being down, the cask in particular, and also the Azir and Varus ultimates for engage or disengage, the poke champion gets a couple of pokes in, they get the turret. Kingzone get their first map objective of the game much later than they would have expected with the draft that they picked up. So while they picked up no kills, they get some deep vision, they move to the bot lane. They'll hope this ends the standard laning phase. The standard laning phase for once hasn't gone their way.
Certainly has not. There aren't a lot of games that Kingzone has lost in 2018. They took the 0-2 to KSV and the 1-2 to BBQ in the spring split. Both of those times, Khan could not finish the series. This is one game where Khan comes in, and again, Afreeca are going to get the advantage here at 15 minutes and 20 minutes ahead in gold. Looking pretty good for them, a big confidence booster for Afreeca and their fans.
Lost games, but not best of threes, not matches in Korea. And of course, we are not going to give them any title apart from Game 1 victor if Afreeca Freecs are able to pick up the win here. All we can point out is that Kingzone, definitely something seems a bit askew. It is not the Kingzone starting on their opponents 3 weeks ago, the last time they played. And Kingzone is trying new stuff on patch 8.6, which does not seem to be as measured as some of the stuff we've seen from them before.
Certainly is not. The lanes have kind of switched up here. After that bottom turret was taken out, the two bot lane duos heading up towards the top side. And of course, Sion and Gnar going into the bottom. Kramer and Tucson looking good in that 2v2. Peanut was hanging around thinking about a gank. Also have BDD up here trying to make it a 4-on-2. Nothing doing though as they back off.
Build from Prey here is actually going to be the Rage Blade into the Hurricane. And Hurricane does proc the attack speed reduction on the Supercharger, the E, or attack speed steroid, that is available onto the Kai'Sa. So the big story there is he can actually take down front lines with this build, but living against the front line, actually getting out consistent auto attacks in the mid game when he has to respect the damage output with no lifesteal is tricky to do. I don't feel like right now Kingzone are set up to get the maximum out of this 2-item build.
Certainly is the case. Another objective here taken by Afreeca. I was wondering whether or not they would go for some kind of Baron shenanigans. They've done it before, especially with the Azir for Kuro. They're thinking about it. You know, it's definitely on the minds of Kingzone as well. You have to be so careful when you're going up against an Azir with a tanky jungler that they don't sneak that Baron objective away from you.
A lot more Baron threat from the side of Afreeca if those two can be grouped, the Azir and also the Varus, compared to any duo that Kingzone can put together, although Kai'Sa with Rage Blade alone does insane Baron damage, thanks to that proccing of the passive. As we return to where the game state is at. Afreeca further ahead than I would expect at the mid-game, and their front line is insanely tanky. The one-shot potential is not there for 2 items onto BDD or 2 items onto Prey. We already mentioned that Afreeca have more access to the backline with things like the Cask and just the ability of Azir to change his positioning in a team fight. So it feels like Afreeca are set up to grow a lead. They have a vision lead as well with Control Ward's pushing up around Baron. But the longer that Baron is on the table, closer than an item like Void Staff is there from BDD.
Here we go.
Afreeca will wonder is they're actually turning onto the Baron at 25 minutes and there's no response.
You talked about the duo. That ward does not spot them coming in. They have no idea. This is going to go down. And there it goes over to Afreeca. The smite is perfect. Afreeca going to pick up Baron at 25 minutes.
Kingzone once again don't have the usual control they do around the river and should not be surprised that Afreeca punished them in the maximum way. The Baron damage on full display. Kingzone thought they had more time. They did not.
They certainly did not. Spirit coming in here. I really wonder whose call that was. I feel like it was just a team effort. Their macro is so insane. Both of these teams, I feel like, have 2 of the best macro here in Korea, and you can really see it in effect in game number 1 already.
And remember, because the Eye of the Watch is now available for the Gragas, they have 2 sweepers and access to many more wards that Kingzone can put down, and they won the early game and had mid lane priority, so they had the ability to push vision, clear vision, and good Baron damage. We would have criticized them if they didn't take the introduction. They didn't need a second one. No RSVP required. They run straight at the Baron. They kill it quickly. And now Kingzone DragonX are against the ropes, and they need to think of something fast.
Super scary to go up against this composition when they're ahead like this with Baron. 2.5 minutes left. Kingzone need the perfect engage, but you're going up against a Tahm Kench and Azir turrets and all the pick, even the Varus chain of corruptions. You have to be so careful when you're going up against this. Will be a free Drake for Afreeca if they want it. Looks like they might go for a turret first. Let's see what they want to do here. Keen face checking. He's 4 levels up on Peanut here, but it is a 1v3, and you got Kai'Sa on your butt. It looks like he's just going to get away. And that should be the Drake and some more objectives going to Afreeca.
Happily drifts away with the Sion, yelling cowards as he exits. Afreeca have the map control onto the Mountain Drake. That'll be an easy one, and suddenly the Baron speed goes higher. That's a bit worrying to think about, Valdez. Easily picked up for Afreeca. We didn't see that super play from Kingzone. Maybe the attempt with the killer instinct there was supposed to represent that. But right now, it feels like Afreeca have all the answers for what Kingzone has posed. The early game mistakes have been punished. They're taking over the jungle. They're strangling out Kingzone in much the same way Kingzone has done to so many opponents, and now pushing onto this inner mid lane turret.
It's so perfect, too. They come into the bot lane, they beat everybody from Kingzone down. Cask is going to separate everyone. Looks like they really want to get this turret in the inner side. Not going to be able to do so just yet, but they bait them in, they take all the vision away, move in, rotate to the mid lane, take that out, or nearly all the way out. And Afreeca managing their waves very, very nicely, and the Baron push going very well.
And if you're sitting at home and you're joining us for the first time this season, you're just here after Worlds, you remembered Longzhu and the potential of the choke against Samsung, you just wanted to see Kingzone, this team that we've built up as this truly great team. Of course, the SpoTV intro of them coming out of the heavens. You won't have seen a performance that justifies those tags in game number 1, and you'll wonder, what's different here? Peanut has been very muted. They have not had mid lane priority like they expected with the Zoe into the Azir. Zoe hasn't had solo kill potential. Khan might actually be solo killed himself.
Another Abyssal Voyage comes in. They try to get that dive onto Khan. He does get away. Charge there from the Scion will not catch him, but again, another objective goes down. A huge Baron power play for Afreeca.
So many junglers have boxed with shadows against Peanut in 2018. They've always been their second. They've watched as he's got the maximum in top, in mid, and bot with his ganks. That hasn't happened here. He was caught on the first rotation. The bot lane collapsed a second time. Now he's boxing with a shadow of the past in Spirit in game number 1. And now Spirit represents something they can't push through. They don't have an answer to the Gragas. Their team fight is not strong enough to take a true 5v5. So BDD and Peanut not being their usual selves compared to the regular season is what I see most clearly. And that is what is the most different from Kingzone compared to every other series we've seen in 2018.
Yep. Couple of young guys on the lineup, even though Peanut does have so much experience, still a young player. Maybe a little bit of jitters on the side of Kingzone as we come into game number 1. Not really what we were expecting. Spirit looking solid as a rock. It's pretty incredible. He comes back here to Busan. He's looking for revenge against a different team here. So good. With that early lead, he picks up a QSS. There's no way for Peanut to win against him in a 1v1. Can't lock him down. He will always be available. Has the eye of the watchers. He is bringing so much utility and engage to this Afreeca team.
And it's amazing that all your preparation said, what would be the special card Afreeca prepared? The Yasuo in the semifinal, such a big pick for them. The Malphite with Trinity Force in the top lane. Actually, it was Kingzone that went the other way and showed us new stuff. This is pretty damn standard from Afreeca, almost suspiciously so. And that is looking like it will be enough to take down Kingzone in game number 1. It's not over. Late game Kai'Sa with a 4th item coming here, or even the right team fight now, could still be a thing. But the script has in many ways been flipped. Right now the script does read an Afreeca Freecs game 1 victory.
Certainly is leaning that way. We're going to have to see what BDD and Prey can do, if they can pop off in the late game. If Afreeca, maybe they get ahead of themselves. One thing we talk about is nerves in a final, but also when you get ahead, that can be a hard time for teams too, for young players. You get really overconfident. You get really just too excited. You don't stay on a even level play with your minds.
We never get too excited here. We know about that one.
We can now because KT, unfortunately, not in the finals.
Yeah.
We can get excited about some of these teams. Sorry, KT fans, but certainly, these guys need to keep a level head if they want to win this. A couple mistakes, Kingzone could easily come back.
You know what the best thing is? We're in the Busan Sajik Gymnasium. This is actually KT's basketball team's home arena. Yep. Excitement is in the building by one way or another.
KT Sonic Boom from the past, coming back in the form of a basketball team here at the Sajik Busan Gymnasium. We got Baron spawning in 45 seconds. All of the vision. Look at the map, guys. There's not a single red ward. What are they going to do to come in here? They're down 7,000 gold. There's now the Mountain Drake as well as the Infernal, the even stronger Azir and Varus. How do you steal that away? How do you even begin to get vision in there are big questions that Kingzone need to answer soon.
If the freak of the last 20 minutes still on the Rift, the answer is you don't, Valdez. There's not always a problem-solving thing I can come up with. Kingzone risk their lives every time they walk up, and even just a full channel. Decimating Smash, a Gragas ultimate, they will be dead, and the Baron will be even freer. So the map control has been immense from the side of Afreeca. It was very likely to turn one way or the other. It seemed like Kingzone Zoe would be the big reason they could get a big lead, and it'd be difficult for them to be face-checked upon. This time, it hasn't been able to happen. The game hasn't ended. The game hasn't been killed. Afreeca Freecs, still for now, someone could walk up and make a mistake, but we're not seeing that on the Rift, and all Kingzone can do is push the palm back that has been safely pushed towards them and wait for Afreeca to start the Baron.
You mentioned how Peanut a bit muted here in game number 1. He's got behind. He hasn't really done much for his team. You look at the damage numbers. Makes sense. It's a Skarner that's behind. One way he could bring his team back is with a big steal. He comes in, gets the steal on Baron, and only he dies. Maybe, just maybe, with some of the poke that Kingzone have, they could come back. Hold that thought, though. The engage on here to Kramer is going to be devoured on up. They do trade once again. The ult for the ult.
Prey
trying to go in there onto Kuro, but eats more damage than he does give out. And already the damage going over to the side of Afreeca. They may look for an engage here soon.
The deep lane ward there actually almost cost Prey his life because it gave vision of Prey as he came around the corner, and he could not see the Azir at the time. We back away, we take a deep breath, start to get ready. Khan's all alone.
He's going to hop over the wall, but what are you going to do against a Scion? The flash into the blasting plant is going to get him out of dodge, but there you go. The flash is going to be down. One way to win is a big Gnar ultimate, but now he doesn't have his flash.
Yeah, lots of resources used there. Freaking just move bot side. They take the free Mountain Drake. They reassess. Elder will be spawning in 6 minutes' time. That was amusing as Scion fell asleep but still roared. I bet that guy snores pretty loudly, Valdez.
Yeah, you know, probably saying something like cowards as loud as possible. Hope he doesn't have a wife or a girlfriend. Would probably disturb them just a bit. We do have now Afreeca with the second Mountain Drake coming on in here. BDD, he's trying his best. He recently picked up the death cap. He wants to try to poke someone down, ideally Kramer. If he could one-shot him, that would be nice. But again, we're on 8.6. It's a lot harder to do that on this patch.
But Afreeca needs to walk up and say, well, we just saw a chunk onto the Scion. It didn't happen. He hardly could get through the W shield. They are strong enough to walk up, and there is no damage on BDD to do anything to the front line. They don't get the deepest of vision. They're going to go for the Baron anyway, looking for a turn here on the side of Afreeca.
It's going to be up to Peanut. Can he get the steal? The early flash in, and he does not get it. Peanut going to take a huge amount of damage, but Prey down in the bottom side trying to do the damage. The huge jump onto the Varus. They do the damage. Now Kuro's low, and he does go down.
Prey's
and the team is going to be going down here as well. It's a 3-on-1. Not much he can do to get out of here. The Baron will go over to Afreeca, but they're trying to escape with as many lives as possible. Only Spirit and Tushin will get away with their lives.
What an engage. What a timing to come through on the killer instinct there. Coming off the setup from the Gnar ultimate. They got to the back line. You can skip steps if you're the Kai'Sa. You have that movement, and Afreeca Freecs are bested by Prey's Kai'Sa.
There it is, the big play we all were hoping for if Kingzone wanted to come back into this one. Really nice read on the flash from Peanut.
Now watch the back line here. Prey starts at the top side, but the moment that Khan comes in, Prey is instantly there, cleans up Kramer. They thought they were fighting front to back, but guess what? When Kai'Sa gets into an unorganized fight, when so much is happening, she can show up, she can kill. They couldn't lock her down, and Kai'Sa won the fight all on her own.
Certainly did. Really nice engage with the teleport behind as well from Khan. Gets onto Kramer. There's nowhere he can go from there. You got a Mega Gnar on you, so just gets stunned up, and Kai'Sa makes it look easy on the back foot. So a little bit of hope here for Kingzone and their fans as the Baron still did get over to Afreeca, but we're getting into the late game stages now.
Very tricky to replicate that fight in a long lane. In the mid lane, the Kai'Sa's not going to show up in the back line, but when you have some wards down, when some brushes can't be checked, aren't warded, are warded around a Baron, then the pandemonium happens and you can use the killer instinct to really use it as a trump card. Much more difficult when you're just in standard laning phase, and the Baron was claimed by Afreeca. So while it definitely stalls the game further, it's not a free win over to Kingzone.
Certainly is true. Getting into that back line against Kramer, we've seen him have a little bit of trouble on the Varus. We need to have Tushin We talk about his initiation, but this time on the Tahm Kench, he needs to be there for Kramer, needs to devour him for those two guys that are going to be looking for the back line. If he can't successfully do that, and they take out the AD carry real fast, I don't care how strong your late game team is, you're going to be having trouble.
And we already spoke about how Kingzone were doing different things, bringing back BDD on the Zoe. Also what the Kai'Sa represents, because usually Prey is on those utility carries. 2-item Ezreal, the Ashe for the arrows. This time he's on a hard carry. This time he has all the farm. This hasn't been Prey in 2018, but we know he can go hard carry when he needs to.
Gonna be locked down here as Khan needs to hop away. Is gonna miss that Mega Gnar as well. Look at the damage already onto the turret. The double Mountain Drake doing that damage. They take out an inhibitor turret already.
Prey can't walk up. The Skarner is on the sides. They're looking to give up this inhibitor, it looks like.
Look at Kramer right in the front, not scared, knows he has Deucin right next to him. Those Baron minions in the back, just one of them is going to take him out with the help of the Baron buff, and already an inhibitor going down 38 minutes in.
And that's what happens when it's in that normal lane, when you're not around the Baron, when there are less things to respect, when you're predictable as the Kai'Sa. Your range can really be an issue in the late game. Still no Void Staff onto BDD, and we already saw that he's basically tickling the front line of Afreeca Freecs. So we back away, free objective, the side of Afreeca. Kingzone are still in the game, and they'll feel like an Elder Dragon fight or a Baron fight, maybe where they can make the comp shine and outplay Afreeca Freecs again.
You notice that Afreeca, after getting that objective, they will go back and buy one final time before the Elder Drake. You take a look at their items now, triple QSS. The Skarner in this game has been just about useless. He hasn't really done much. Peanut has not been able to show up here in game number 1 on the Skarner pick that they picked very early on in the draft. It was their first pick for Kingzone. Certainly some stuff to think about as we go into the later stages of the series.
Gragas with this Runic Echo has been a great answer. Love what Spirit has done this game. Best Gragas we've seen so far in 2018. As situationally it's coming back. Against Sejuani, you can definitely go Gragas. Against lower skirmish junglers, you can definitely opt into the Gragas. And they did ban away the Nidalee, you'll remember. Take away one of those big power picks for Peanut. Kingzone continue to be respectful. They continue to realize that a game with 130, 140,000 gold wasn't looking like it was on the cards after their mistakes in the early game. When you get to full items, you pick the right team fight, the death time is long enough. There is still a game that ends with Kingzone winning game number 1.
Certainly is true. One big team fight win could just win the entire game for you. And you mentioned it before, the Elder Drake fight is going to begin. 5 seconds until this objective does spawn. What are they going to do?
Only just comes up. There was actually a window of about 15 seconds there where Afreeca will look for an engage, but Khan will be able to join. Mega Gnar will start the timeout.
There's no ward in the backline, though. No ward to get behind Kramer this time around. Khan is just walking down this time around. He has the push, the advantage in the top lane, so he will be okay to come down here.
This is an insanely big Elder. The Kingzone knows that means Afreeca will finish it if they can. Huge damage already with the double Mountain Drake. Afreeca being respectful. We're so close to the game-winning moment, I feel like, Valdez. This Elder goes to Afreeca. Surely it's game 1.
Remember Afreeca that one time against KT. KT went for the Cloud Drake. Afreeca just pushed down mid. The big initiation from Deucin wins them a game when they weren't really supposed to at that time. But now it's a totally different situation. Afreeca, they want the Elder Drake.
They have great wards also to spot around every corner of this blue box. They know exactly where Kingzone is at every moment. They hold that informational advantage. Can't even pop the Banshee Veil here from Kurok and BDD.
Someone's got to go down here and clear those super minions. That's the one big worry. It's going to be Prey. He does have that W to try to get back into the fight. They see him go back, and immediately they start. But Prey shows himself again. Afreeca just dancing around Kingzone right now. They are giving so much respect to this team. They do not want to have a chance of this being stolen.
Watch Gorilla. He's on the bot side, not spotted at the moment, looking for a flank. He's deciding whether he needs to recall. They're just going to power it down. I think Peanut's going to give it up.
There it is. The smite comes in and no hope. Exquisitely done by Afreeca. They wait until the perfect moment. Gorilla wanted the flank, but couldn't get there in time. The double Mountain Drake certainly hurts for Kingzone as it just disappears off the map.
And in all of the hype of the Yasuo pick in Game 4, that was the winning game for Afreeca Freecs that brought them to the grand final. Remember, the Winions actually ended that game. That's the thing you forget there, is that macro was one of the big reasons after the Yasuo pick. They could do so much in game number 4 against KT, booking that spot in Busan. So They get a free 4-stack Elder. May not be the second stack of Elder, but damn, is it powerful. And they walk over to Baron with that buff still being worn for another 2 minutes.
There's not much that Kingzone can do. Just going to clear out the wards here. You'll notice that even recalls coming out of Peanut as they're thinking about going back right now. Will Afreeca start it up with the Elder Drake? The answer is yes.
It's going to be so fast. Watch
Look
this.
at this. It just disappears. There's no hope. And Kingzone know it. They have to give it up. But now they're going up against Baron and Elder push in the super late game against Afreeca's late game composition. This is going to be rough to stop. Afreeca looking so good in this game.
4 stacks souped up by the Elder Dragon and the maximum foul for the Baron because it was taken at 42 minutes. You really cannot get more neutral advantages than Afreeca Freecs were able to get largely from a smart early game and some mistakes from Khan in particular. Peanut also on the side of Kingzone. Afreeca Freecs push in top. They can choose to engage. They can push up their minions. Bot lane inhibitor has respawned, so some of the global minion pressure is lessened from the side of Afreeca Freecs.
Look at how meticulously they move these lanes. The macro is on point tonight. They send back Tushin to get the Baron buff. Peanut taking so much damage in the front line. Trying to help there in the defense, but not much he can do. The Skarner is totally useless now. At this point in the game, they're going to give away one more inhibitor, make that 2 as they move towards the bottom side. Keen also escorting in the top.
2 inhibitors minimum are picked up easily by the side of Afreeca. Kingzone are able to keep this last minion wave from crashing, but if Afreeca shows up, Kingzone are going to have to do something desperate.
Elder Drake, 16 seconds left. The burn damage onto Khan is even very noticeable with all of those Drakes. They're just going to push it. They don't even need the minions. They have enough damage now to chunk it away. That should be a 3rd inhibitor. Some nice damage coming out of BDD onto Kuro. Let's see if they can actually engage here. They need to do something desperately. Afreeca, once again, showing class, backing off. They do not want to take a fight that they're not ready for. They wait for the minions to come in, taking it very, very slowly into this inhibitor.
Everything is on their side. Still wearing the Baron buff for another minute 30. Kramer, the safest AD carry ever. As there's just no backline threat from Kingzone. It takes too long to go through the tanks. Afreeca dotting their I's, crossing their T's. Will it be the 3rd inhibitor on this push? They're waiting for the minions.
That they are. BDD so close to chunking Kramer there in that last initiation. You can see that he's going to try to go for it. Some desperation play perhaps with the flash of his own. Just looking to clear, and again, the inhibitor is not going to go down just yet. There it is, the engage from Gorilla, but in the front line is the tanks, and they're going to lock down Gorilla now. That ultimate is eventually going to go down, and the Alistair will be taken out, but Prey trying to go 1v5. Can he do it? He nearly takes out Spirit, and Kuro gets low as well. But in the end, the inhibitor goes down, and one member of Kingzone does as well. Afreeca, they will back off to fight another day.
A lot of respect shown to how much damage Prey can do in these late game fights. Don't choose to go for more. Their front line was DPS'd out. The Warmogs means that Sion is full health again. Peanut is a glorified ult, nothing more. Very, very useless at this point in the game on the Skarner. So the game does not end on that push. A bit more life to Kingzone. But to what end? Because eventually 3 super minion waves will push in. And then whether they win the fight or not, it will probably be Afreeca Freecs going to game number 2.
Afreeca now with the gigantic push, double super minions in every single lane. Battered up melee minion, that's all they can get. They're gonna push it on in here. What can BDD do? You can see he's trying so hard with the paddle stars, with the flash that he does pick up, but nothing doing so far. Kingzone just gonna have to put on the miracle defense.
SpoTV in the bottom right corner shows you still over 2.5 minutes for all of these inhibitors to respawn. A very long time on the map to face off against so much power on the side of Afreeca. Play this turret defense, a full iPhone game, trying to keep this thing going. It may not be out yet, but Afreeca Freecs know that eventually they can back off, and that second Elder, 4 stacks, could kill the game.
Certainly could. Don't have the timer on that one just yet, probably about 3 minutes. Chains of Corruption comes in, and the cleanse from BDD and his own flash. So much respect shown. He needs to survive if they're going to wave clear, and so he will do just that. Will blow his summoners to try to wave clear. Kai's up in the top side. Prey gonna engage here onto Spirit. Gotta be careful about that. 4 super minions pushing up there. Where is the entrance here for Afreeca, though? They're having trouble getting to those turrets.
They're just being respectful. They're waiting for Kingzone to go in. They want to use the cast to split. But now the minions start to push in. Watching closely here, they should lose their first Nexus turret.
Gorilla, he needs to engage with the perfect devour there from Tushin, and the double knockup from the Ember's Divine. But Prey, he's going off. He's in the front line now. Keen taking a bunch of damage. No deaths here on the side of Kingzone just yet. Prey in the back line. Can he 1v5 this? He's taking that damage from Kuro. Doesn't look like the answer is yes just yet. Khan now gonna go down to Kramer. He gets his own backline access, takes out one member, getting to work on the turret now. Looks like Afreeca is gonna be able to take game number 1. Down goes the Nexus, and are you surprised? They take out Kingzone, the favorites, in game number 1.
Afreeca Freecs, they went for the standard. Kingzone was the one that rolled the dice and says, we got new stuff after 3 weeks. The new stuff turned against them. No value out of the Zoe as the game goes on. Peanut for once, well held in the early game. No mid-jungle control. Really doesn't jive with the Kingzone strategy. And Afreeca Freecs can smile and say, we took game 1, there will be no 3-0. A lot of predictions, including mine, already out the door. And suddenly game 2 pick and ban, a mouth-watering one between Kingzone and Afreeca Freecs.
You talk about predictions, the most common one I saw was 3-1 Kingzone. But already Afreeca has a game. That's not what you were expecting. You were expecting somewhere along the domination of Kingzone, Afreeca sneak one with the sneaky strategy. That is not what happened in game 1. Afreeca coming out to play, whereas Kingzone arguably did not in game number 1.
Afreeca Freecs looked the more polished. Both teams made a couple of mistakes early, but they were less trademarked for Kingzone. They were bigger, and they were punished to the maximum. And those early game mistakes, whatever the next 25 minutes, are pretty standard. And practice League of Legends that Kingzone played, they couldn't paper over the cracks that were there in the early game.
You talk about those early game mistakes. Once it got past that early game, these guys looked so solid. I talked about it before. Ila Vuv, that legendary coach, he said, I want to bring a team in that's not the strongest team and win the finals. He's already one game closer to doing exactly that. He is the guy that keeps them all calm. All these guys that do not have the experience in finals look so calm and cool and collected. Either way, guys, enough of the talk. We're going to go to a break before we get into game number 2. See you in a bit.